Overlooking the plains, on a ridge not far from Agra, stands Fatehpur Sikri. The foundation of this city was laid in about the year 1569 by Akbar, the greatest and wisest of Mughal emperors, to commemorate the birth of his son and heir, Prince Salim. Nothing sadder or more beautiful exists in India today than this deserted city, which once blazed with color and spectacle. The achievements of Akbar were many. He advocated the fusion of Islam with Hinduism, which opened a profound chapter in the history of the Indian people. He propagated the Din-e-Ilahi, the divine faith, which taught the basic truth of all religions. It is only natural, therefore, that his architectural achievements reflected his philosophy. The Jamai Masjid, one of the most magnificent mosques in the East, is as Hindu as it is Saracenic. Here, Akbar went through the ritual of washing before he answered the muezzin's call to prayer. After the morning prayer, the mosque was used as a school, and while the scholars taught Akbar's philosophy, he went to the Divani Khas, the hall of special audience, to receive ambassadors and to discuss affairs of state with his ministers and generals. With its Saracenic carving and Hindu design, this unique pillar is world famous. The guiding deity of many Hindu kings was the god Vishnu, upholder of the universe, and it would seem that Akbar's throne was built as a symbol of Vishnu's sustaining power. Here, the emperor sat with two ministers on either side. The day's work done, Akbar retired to the Queen's palace. The Turkish Sultanas house, as this palace is called, is one of the richest of Akbar's buildings and is more ornamented than any other in Fatehpur Sikri. One student of architecture has called this interior a gigantic jewel casket. In Fatehpur Sikri, we see the naturalness with which Hindu architecture and Persian decoration blend, a tribute to the Indian master craftsmen of the Middle Ages. This, indeed, is the importance of Mughal art, that it finally crystallized the tentative merging of Hindu and Saracenic traditions, making it unmistakably Indian. As evening approached, Akbar would go for a walk. He liked to climb the top of the 5 stories of the Panch Mahal, a delicate pavilion from which he enjoyed a view of his city. From here, Akbar listened to the voice of the composer and singer, who for every Indian rises above all others in the world of classical music, Tansen.
के समय गरजत खबड़ोकार खेलन आए होरी खेलन आए होरी बरखा के समय गरजत खबड़ोकार खेलन आए होरी के
War was as much a part of Akbar's life as art and philosophy. After his conquest of the Deccan, he built the lofty gateway called the Buland Darwaza. The Buland Darwaza, the highest gateway in the east, is considered by archaeologists and architects to be one of the finest monuments in India. Akbar's triumphant return to Fatehpur Sikri and its subsequent prosperity were short-lived. The carefully planned city, with its schools and hospitals, bazaars and jewelers' shops and caravanserais, suffered a terrible blow in the death of Salim Chishti, Akbar's spiritual advisor, the saint after whom Akbar had named his son Salim. Salim Chishti's tomb of white marble lies in the courtyard of the great mosque. The workmanship here is as exquisite as if it had been done in ivory. The passing of Salim Chishti cast a gloom over the city. The scarcity of water had always been a problem here, and now the very earth seemed to dry up as if to mourn his loss. The people began to migrate, and soon Fatehpur Sikri became the deserted city we know today. Akbar was compelled to abandon his capital and move it back to Agra, 23 miles away. The great fort of Agra is a fine example of Akbar's military genius. Within the fort is the Diwan-e-Am, the hall of public audience. Akbar had little time in which to lament the desolation of Fatehpur Sikri. There was work to be done. People from all over India came with countless petitions which he heard from his throne. It is a measure of Akbar's greatness that he gave to his creed of the divine faith a political shape. He welded scattered elements into one of the mightiest empires India had ever known. And when the sun of Akbar's ascendancy was at its highest, it was eclipsed. Akbar died in 1605 at the age of 62 and is buried here in Sikandra, a few miles from Agra. A cenotaph covers the crypt in which lie Akbar's mortal remains. A strange premonition had caused him a year or two before his death to begin the building of his own tomb. Akbar had designed his tomb after the many-storied vihara or monastery, but Akbar died before it was done, and it was completed by his son Jahangir. With its gates and gardens and its majestic quietude, it is a fitting tribute to the great Mughal. On Akbar's death, Prince Salim became the Emperor Jahangir. He ruled from here. Nobles, chieftains and kings, they came from all over India to pay homage and swear loyalty. It was the fashion of the day to celebrate great events with elephant fights. Courtiers had a wonderful view of the arena below. Jahangir completed many of the buildings left unfinished by his father. But of the original creations during his reign, the most important is the mausoleum of Itmad-ud-Dawla. Itmad-ud-Dawla was Jahangir's prime minister and his father-in-law. Jahangir's queen, Noor Jahan, was deeply attached to her father, and when he died, she asked Jahangir to build a mausoleum the like of which India had never known. When it was built, it had no equal, but within a generation it was surpassed by the Taj Mahal. Nevertheless, it is a great monument in its own right, and in some ways a progenitor of the Taj. It's a rare example of solid yet elegant construction and the most delicate inlay work. The tombs of Noor Jahan's father and mother are built of yellow porphyry. The white marble, inlaid with colored stones, pietra dura work as it's called, is very similar to that in the Taj Mahal, the work of the same school of craftsmen, and indeed the experience gained here proved invaluable in decorating the Taj. Jahangir's son, Shah Jahan, was the greatest of the Mughal builders, surpassing his grandfather Akbar in the variety and richness of the monuments he built. Shah Jahan was an artist and a prince among builders. This palace, which he built for himself, is but one example. During Shah Jahan's reign, it was recognized that the Buddhist Hindu tradition and Arabic, Persian and Central Asian art had so merged that there was no longer any question of thinking of them as individual creative forces. They had all become part of the new Indian tradition of Mughal architecture. Shah Jahan made it a point to go to the Muti Masjid, the Pearl Mosque, every Friday to pray with his subjects. He built it in about the year 1650. Mughal art is an outstanding example of the truth that for centuries craftsmen and masons were devoid of religious prejudice. They were part of the universal brotherhood of man. They put their art above everything, and in Shah Jahan's reign they reached one of those rare peaks which scholars refer to as great moments in the history of architecture. Within these walls, Shah Jahan lived with his queen, Arjuman Banu Begum, better known as Mumtaz Mahal. In homage to her beauty, Shah Jahan told his craftsmen to make her chamber the loveliest in India, and so it is. The love of Shah Jahan and Mumtaz Mahal has inspired many poems and many paintings, but the greatest tribute to their love was to come after her death. She died young, and Shah Jahan was stricken with despair. the beauty which surrounded him. Each stone in each wall of these rooms reminded him only of her, and the days of his sorrow were endless. Shah Jahan's pain did not die with time. It grew, and so he crystallized it. He built for his love the world's most beautiful monument. For long hours, he would stand on this balcony, watching the Taj Mahal. And when the course of history made him a prisoner at the hands of his own son, Shah Jahan's only consolation was to gaze upon the poem in marble, symbolizing his dedication to a sublime love, the Taj, which changes its beauty each hour of the day. The creator of this wonder in marble died a bitter man, a fallen emperor, a wounded father, and a lover without his dream. In his last years, Shah Jahan could no longer see the changing face of the Taj, even from his prison window, for he was almost blind. Even his blindness, a poet has said, served to reflect in the depths of his soul the image of the White Queen of Monuments. At last, they lie here side by side, the young queen snatched from life and the blind despairing lover, Arjuman Banu Begum, Mumtaz Mahal, and Shah Jahan, Emperor of Hindustan. Their tomb, the peerless Taj Mahal.